Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And hello everybody, and welcome once again to another edition of the Juice Box. I am, of course, Juice Springsteen, here as we are 2 weeks away from the Royal Rumble, 1 week away from Saturday night's main event, days removed from the debut of TNA on AMC, and we have a new WWE champion to boot. So all these things and more will be discussed here on the Juice Box this week. Probably more of a condensed episode, but, this is what we do. We got Saturday night's main event predictions next week, Royal Rumble predictions the following week. We had last week on this feed the episode of No Dirt, Just Dialogue that featured yours truly and friend of the show, Andrew Baydala, which was a great episode. Check that out every Thursday in the afternoon time slots on the Final Bell Media YouTube channel at Final Bell Media. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. You can listen to the Juice Box on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, juicysteen.podbean.com. And if you do listen to this show on Apple Podcasts via iTunes or Spotify, please leave a rating and review. Helps the show grow. At Juicy Steen on YouTube if you want to catch the feed or any videos here under the Juice Box umbrella. That being said, let's get into some of the news and the notes here from this past week. Like I said, quite a bit of interesting stuff going on currently in regards to the pro wrestling world. We will be discussing the very interesting TNA on AMC debut, which, gotta be honest, I was pretty disappointed with. Now, that's not to say that the pay-per-view tonight, Genesis, can't improve on that, or that, the following weeks of TV can't improve on that. It's just for a debut episode, I would have felt they would have gone above and beyond to try to hook in some of the casual audience that might not be familiar with their programming, or at least hype up the pay-per-view more. And there was just a lot of problems that we will discuss about everything that we saw, all the intricacies of what we saw on the TNA on AMC debut. Also, Saturday night's main event coming, together. The card is, we've got 3 matches thus far, probably going to add one more to the show. It's a week out from the Rumble, which is always an interesting, interesting nugget to have practically a PLE and then a PLE within 2 weeks. But you can get some matches off before the Rumble that you're not going to have at the Rumble, and vice versa, especially when you've got 2 of the 4 matches at the Rumble being Rumble matches at all. One will more than likely be the WWE Championship match. And then who knows what the other match will be. But we'll discuss that as well. Let's actually kick things off, though. I want to touch on AEW, what happened on Dynamite. Then we'll talk a little free agency and some chaos ensuing on that front. AEW was a solid episode, I felt, this week. We had the world title match, MJF retaining against Bandito. Great match. I really felt that, Bandito can really hold his own as a singles wrestler. Of course, we've known that, but, when he was Brodito with Brody King and they were winning the tag titles, it was also pretty exciting. But back as a singles wrestler here, with the Dynamite Diamond Ring and MJF, having some feuds with Mystico last year over the summer. So there's a lot of ties with luchadors, MJF, and the world title being on the line was quite the wrinkle. And even though Bandito lost, MJF still, put over Bandito, saying he definitely seems to be one of the guys with a future. However, as soon as he praised Bandito, he kicked him while he was down. So clearly MJF is sticking with the heel heat. That was never going to go away. Brody King was in a squash match. Speaking of Brody King, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with him. If he's going to get into a title picture soon, what that really means. Will he get a TNT title match? I don't know if he's going to factor in maybe for the world title at some point. But we have a lot of interesting people at the main event level here with Hangman, Swerve, Kenny Omega, all seemingly trying to get a shot at MJF. Now, will that turn into a four-way match? Will the three have a triple threat and, find out who will win to then go on and take MJF on for the world title? With a pay-per-view in March is the next one. I don't know what the plan is. I'm very curious, though, for sure. So we'll see, if there's something else down the pike, triple threat, or maybe MJF has a match in between those. I don't know. It's very interesting, and we'll talk about this with week-to-week TV every now and again. Just, you got to know what's next. MJF has this title match, but he's also got three guys vying for it, but you got to figure out which one of those guys is the guy. And if it's Kenny Omega, do you have Swerve and Hangman remain as a tag team? Because that's what I would do. I think Swerve and Hangman should actively be trying to challenge for the tag titles at some point. And as that's happening, we've got a four-way tag match where Doyle and Davis defeated Jet Speed, the Young Bucks, and the GOA to earn the tag title match against FTR. We have Cope and Christian still very much, available. Just when they come back is up in the air. We don't really know. Hangman and Jet Speed challenge the Ops for the World Trios titles, which is interesting. We'll talk about that in a little bit with the Ops specifically. Triangle of Madness defeated the World Champ Chris Statlander and the Tag Champs Babes of Wrath. So, that could be leading into a potential world title match and tag title match with all those women involved. Whether maybe Sky Blue gets the world title match and then Julia Hart and Tekla maybe get the tag title shot. Who knows? Maybe just any sort of tandem there, I think, is worthwhile to explore. But overall, week to week, AEW's been doing solid. Like I said, it's tough with these pay-per-views that are just so far away. It's tough to hold interest for so long. And I will say this, though, the venue this past week for Dynamite was incredible. And I felt that, it was in Phoenix, Arizona. And this venue, I know that the entranceway is a stage, but how it looked with the crowd made it seem like they were watching a play. The crowd in a bowl similar to Daly's Place, like a Coliseum, where you just have this full-fledged wide array of seats all converging on the entranceway, which connected directly to the ring with the ramp, which I'm always a fan of, especially since WCW did that and AEW's done that for quite a few of their venues they've done. And I don't know. I really like that. I like the hard camera being at that rampway to look out into the crowd, a full-fledged crowd too, and right with the wrestlers in the foreground. It just creates a good shot. Thematically and on camera, it just looks great. And I just, it's the little things. Again, we'll talk about that coming up in negative ways with TNA, but I don't know. Really enjoyed Dynamite this week, but like I said, it's more week to week when you've got so many weeks before the next pay-per-view. We had Darby defeating Pac in a hellacious match. Darby taking bumps that most men wouldn't take on pay-per-view. He's taking on TV. He took a stair bump that Drew McIntyre would have been, hurt doing, considering he did one at Bad Blood last year or in 2024. Like landing on your back on the edge of the stairs is no good. I don't know how these guys can do it, especially a little guy like Darby. Like he doesn't have a lot of meat back there to land on. So pretty much spine first, but man, hell of a bump by Darby. So I'm curious what he's got going on. Is he going to end up, maybe getting a TNT title shot? I wouldn't mind Mark Briscoe versus Darby Allin. There's plenty of options, I would wager, for all the titles in AEW, and give it some time, and we'll figure out something, I'm sure. So that's the AEW of it all. Not really much else going on. However, I do want to bring up, they did announce with a graphic the signing of the Rascals, 4 men that were previously in TNA, which is a pretty big signing, and I'm not going to sit here and say that AEW's roster is not already bloated, but it is. Yet, they're going to have to figure out ways to, make the most out of everybody is on the roster week to week. And additionally to that, sounds like we got Scott Steiner coming down the rampway here in the background. Pardon that. Another contract interesting nugget was Powerhouse Hobbs. It seemed to be that Thursday at midnight was going to be, the end of Hobbs' contract with AEW. And it was reported that he would not re-up on that, and seemingly all signs are pointing to WWE. That does pose a problem, considering Hobbs currently is 1/3 of the World Trios titles. And I do believe it is I'm not sure. Is it a live episode of, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a live episode of Collision. So, they can kind of get around that with the match that they're supposed to have later on tonight. But if, oh, here comes Scott Steiner once again. But, yeah, interesting situation with Hobbs where he's 1/3 of the Trios champions. Apparently he's going to WWE. He didn't show up at TNA, which I thought was a potential possibility. That didn't happen. And yet, could he show up in NXT? Could Hobbs show up on SmackDown? SmackDown's got 3 hours. SmackDown's got quite a bit of room with a roster and 3 hours to give, where, why not get a guy like Hobbs on there to get a really, really credible, bigger opponent for your Jacob Fatu's, your Drew McIntyres, your Oba Femis, your Gunthers, your Braun Breakers. I think Hobbs fits right in to that mold there. And I'm looking forward, if this is the case, to see what Hobbs ends up doing in WWE if he does indeed go there. Now, we brought this up on No Dirt, Just Dialogue this past week, myself, Andrew McDowell, Jordan Carter, where maybe AEW should start revising the way they do contracts. Now, I know that at the start, when you don't really know what's going to happen in regards to, when they started 2019, we don't know what's going to happen. Will we be successful? Will WWE want to poach talent? COVID hit, so that changed a lot of things. And a lot of wrestlers were getting 5-year contracts, And some of those contracts, your Ray Phoenix, your Britt Bakers, some others, seemingly are just being used. The wrestlers don't end up getting on TV at a certain point, and then the contract just ends up rolling away, fizzling out, concluding, and then maybe not re-upping, and then you end up going somewhere else. Now, in Ray Phoenix's case, we know that for sure, and he wasn't being used. His contract was just fading away, and they let it run out before they let him go. We don't really know with Britt Baker, but we know, at least of now, she's still under contract. Chris Jericho is still on the roster page, so we don't know where that is going to lead. That, again, he could easily show up at the Royal Rumble, and I wouldn't be shocked. In fact, that's where I think it's going to happen. But, having these multi-year contracts for so long, not being able to utilize them on your TV because you only have 4 hours of TV, each week. And then these guys and girls are just ending up sitting on the sidelines, not doing much. You let the contract fizzle out, and that's the end of it, And it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for the talent. The talent doesn't get the exposure. You are wasting your money. You are wasting your time. You're not putting the wrestlers on your TV, which is important. And, most of all, you're probably, showing other wrestlers, if we don't use you, you might just, might be sitting around. Hopefully you enjoy just not wrestling if we don't really have anything for you. Hopefully WWE would want you. Otherwise, you'll get your little contract, but that'll be the end of it. And I don't know. We'll see what happens with Hobbs here. I hope that AEW can... this is what I suggested, is that you give, if someone comes in, you give them, let's say, a 2-year deal with a third option year where at 3 or 4 months outside of that second year being up, you kind of say, hey, are you interested in signing a third year? If not, great, we won't re-up you. We'll close it out. We'll write you off TV in the right way, and you can be on your way. If not, you can choose to, sign with us, and you'll be here for another year at least. We'll revise and revisit this in that next year. You can't be doing 5-year contracts anymore unless, they're your mega stars, your MJFs, your Kenny Omegas, your Okadas, Will Ospreay. You want to keep these guys for a long time. And locking those guys up when you utilize them every week is a smart idea, so that's what you should be doing. So outside of those guys, the Hobbs situation, the Rascal situation, who knows what's going to happen here with your TNA, your WWE, your AEW, back and forth, who's signing where, what's going on. And it's fascinating to see because you don't want anyone sitting at home, but you also don't have, a ton of TV time in the grand scheme of things. 4 hours if you're AEW. A lot more if you're WWE, and that's including NXT. 3 hours and 2 hours combined for 5 on the main roster. You got 2 hours for NXT, 7 total hours on your main programming. Evolve gives you another hour. You're already utilizing WWE ID. They can afford to grab talent here, talent there, make sure that, they utilize them, give them time, and they will happily take wrestlers from WWE or from AEW, and among other places, even TNA, your Joe Hendrys, what have you, where they will find somewhere for you to wrestle. They will find programming for you to be featured on. But fascinating, gotta say, very fascinating development across the Will Hobbs situation. We'll see where he ends up. I think it'd be interesting if he shows up at the Royal Rumble. He did not show up on SmackDown. I don't know what's going to be the plan, but we'll find out. We will find out. Something else we found out was that TNA debuted on AMC. I was not particularly impressed by any of this. This is another, debut for TNA. They on Access TV, and then they had the shows with NXT and their pay-per-views, and they've done this, they've done that. They've been around for over 20 years. I've been a big fan of TNA since pretty much the beginning. That '05 era of Fox Sports Net with the timer running down for each match. I love that era. All the way through your '05 to '09, TNA is some of the best wrestling and just entertaining stuff you'll see. The Hogan Bischoff era kind of ruined things for it, and then they switched over to the iMPACT name, reclaimed the TNA name to start 2024. So that was like another fresh start. So then we get this fresh start on AMC. And look, I was excited. The hype was there. A lot of fans were thrilled. And, a lot of buzz surrounded this show. And even with all of that, somehow things just didn't turn out how I would have anticipated. Where, first of all, AJ Styles begins the show, which is great. Legend of TNA, arguably the greatest thing to ever come out of TNA. And what does he do better than anybody else? Cut a promo. They had him cut a promo in the middle of the ring with some "let's create some chaos" force-fed line that he said to the crowd. If you can't utilize AJ Styles to wrestle, I don't think it's worth having him come out to the music just for him to hype up the crowd. It's a waste. You could have had him set up a match for Genesis tonight. Yet, he did, he was backstage. I'll give him this. He was backstage. He looked at Kazarian and the TNA title and kind of was eyeing that up. Kaz, of course, loses the title to Santana at the end of the night on the debut episode of TNA on AMC. And, maybe AJ is going to get involved in the title match. Texas Death Match tonight at Genesis, who knows? But I just wouldn't have utilized AJ Styles in that way if you weren't going to be able to do something else with it. We did see the Hardys and Elijah get a win over the Order 4, Mustafa Ali and some of his cronies, which was what it was. Always nice seeing the Hardy Boys still killing it in 2026. I'm very certain and curious of when, though, the WWE Hardy Boys final run will take place. I'm not sure when that'll be. If they lose the titles at some point, I would wager then that's when that'll be, because I think, one more WrestleMania match for the two of them would pretty much be all that they want to conclude everything, I would wager. We had Santino Marella addressing a new authority figure, which was Daria Ray, a.k.a. the former Sonya Deville, which I like. Fan of Sonya Deville, like her work as the GM as she was on Raw. Really enjoyed that. And then we get the Elegance brand with Perez Hilton with this random guy that they chose to be Mr. Elegance. I truthfully don't know who he is. And the crowd didn't seem to care either. Yet, the Elegance brand got the win for the tag titles on the Knockouts division. So, congratulations to them. And then, of course, we will get a Knockouts title match at the pay-per-view tonight. There were also, this is another part of it, there were some visa issues that prevented a few talent from not being able to appear at this first show for TNA on AMC. And that is what it is. It just felt like, oh, here we go, TNA again. Dixie Carter got introduced, which was bizarre. And, again, hyping up some TNA stuff. And she got booed. Bully Ray came out, though, and interrupted her, which got a lot of cheers, considering their history when Bully powerbombed Dixie through the table back in TNA, which was awesome back then. That was cool. Mike Santana gets the world title. He wins it against Frankie Kazarian. He wins it for the second time. Here's my thing, though. Bully Ray taking shots at Tony Khan with a justified line after the fans chanted, "This is awesome," and Just some other, just some other stuff that I was just like, all right. Bully trying to get himself over when he should be getting the match over. It is what it is, though. Shots are shots. It's a pro wrestling business, not the pro wrestling friendship. So I can respect a shot here and there. I just felt, again, why do you need to take up TNA's time to do such on commentary when you could have easily done it on your Busted Open show? Like, there's plenty of time on your own programming to do that instead of wasting valuable airspace on TNA, but I digress. I guess Nick Nemeth, who will be the referee in the Texas Death Match, Kaz and Santana at Genesis, he's going to be the referee. I guess he has a contract, like a call your shot thing to cash in. Of course, that could happen tonight at Genesis. It did not happen at the end of this show on TNA on AMC, the debut. The show just kind of ended with Santana winning, and then that was it. The feed cut before they could shoot an angle setting up this match on pay-per-view, which I felt was, man, again, TNA, just a mistake after mistake. And it's little production errors that really matter. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, you just don't like the show, and the visas were a part of it. And there were more video packages on this show than there were matches. And I understand that you have to, garner to a new audience, a casual audience, maybe people that don't know TNA, and that's fine. But you couldn't have thrown anybody else out there and had some other matches. Like, your roster is very deep. There's a hell of a depth of roster spots on TNA, for TNA. The system could have had a match. I know they're having their 8-man tag closing out Fandango, his career tonight, but you could have had them have a match on Impact. The only other thing I'll say with the production, the audio was poor, a lot more than I would like it on a debut episode like this. Additionally, they showed, influencers in the crowd, some content creators in the crowd, some celebrities in the crowd, but they were on a side where you could see numerous empty seats behind them. And it just looked very amateur, and I don't know. It just felt like, wow, TNA is just TNAing again. I don't get why you couldn't have put the celebrities, the influencers, the content creators, you couldn't have put them in the thick of the crowd to enjoy the show and have it look a lot better than what it was. It just came off very lame and conjured up and not authentic at all. Just like, here's people we want you to see at this show to make you want to be here. And I just don't think that accomplished that. I mean, I would go to a TNA show. I went to TNA last year. I had a great time, but I am not the audience they're trying to persuade. So I just felt there was a lot of disconnects. I'm willing to give them another shot next week on Impact on AMC. I'll be tuning into Genesis tonight, so it is what it is. I'm more than willing to be open. It was just a lot of clunkiness. It just seemed like, what are we doing? This is your big debut on AMC, and it just came off like LOL, TNA. Closing out the juice box today, just talk about this. Drew McIntyre, new WWE champion, after the cage match on SmackDown. Defeats Cody Rhodes, interference from Jacob Fatu, and I'm looking forward to what we got here at Saturday Night's Main Event. We're going to talk about it. So Drew McIntyre now as WWE Champion, which, him winning the WWE, Drew McIntyre being WWE Champion, and just how, and Becky Lynch being Intercontinental Champion again, I really think that these are purposefully done so that, Rhea Ripley being champion again, tag champs with Io Sky. You want to have your major players have pretty guaranteed spots at WrestleMania, and having championships is a way to do it, at least early, to where whether they lose and then they try to get them back by WrestleMania, or they are defending the titles at WrestleMania. Either way works. But Drew McIntyre will defend the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble in Riyadh, January 31st. But on Saturday night's main event, we will find out who will be Drew McIntyre's opponent. It will be either Sami Zayn, Damian Priest, Trick Williams, or Randy Orton. All four of those guys won their qualifiers this past week on SmackDown. Orton defeated The Miz. Trick Williams defeated Matt Cardona. Shout out to Matt Cardona being back in WWE, by the way. Hell of a talent, earning his way back into WWE after all this time, 5 years since he was fired. Damian Priest defeated Solo Sikoa, and Sami Zayn beat Ilya Dragunov. So now those men, fatal four-way, Saturday night's main event, winner gets the WWE title match in Riyadh at the Royal Rumble against Drew McIntyre. I want to say Randy Orton's going to get the win. However, I'd love to see Trick or Damian Priest get the win as well. I just think it would be interesting. Trick and Drew McIntyre at the Rumble would be really, really interesting, to say the least. And I also think, I just don't want Sami Zayn to be in the title match of the Royal Rumble. I'm sticking with Sami Zayn entering the Royal Rumble and winning the Royal Rumble, as I stated last April. That was my first way too early Royal Rumble winner. So I'm hopeful that sticks. I picked Jey Uso to win last year in May. Came through. We'll see if we can pull it off again with Sami Zayn. But additionally, we have Rhea Ripley and Io Sky defending the women's tag titles against the Judgment Day. Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, WWE women's tag titles on the line. Bell Center, Montreal, Quebec, Canada at Saturday night's main event. This is the first one since Cena's retirement, which is crazy that's already been a month out from, where we're having this show. It's wild that it's been that long. Of course, afterthought. That's what Cena said. He said, everybody will forget about me. Rumble time. It'll be what it was. Cody Rhodes, Jacob Fatu, singles match at Saturday night's main event. Love this. Jacob Fatu came in to the cage, attacked Drew McIntyre, attacked Cody Rhodes, distracted both of them, and Cody got so distracted that Drew McIntyre kind of walks, crawls, falls out of the cage to win the WWE Championship. And now Jacob Fatu fully ensconced in the main event scene. Kind of a tweener, though, taking on Cody Rhodes, who I feel, he says he's going to the Royal Rumble. He's entered in the Royal Rumble. He's won the damn thing 2 years in a row. Could he win it? He's won it twice. He's trying to win it for the third time. Could he be the only second man to ever win his third Royal Rumble? He's already entered the match. And here's my thing. I think Cody Rhodes is way better as the Chase. The Chase and winning the championship are Cody Rhodes' best abilities. As champion, I just don't think it's that great. I think it can get stale. It can get a little boring, depending on who you get in there. I mean, I like Cody and Kevin Owens as a match. I like them as a feud. I think you got to shake things up, whether that's a draft or what have you, but Cody needs some other opponents if he becomes champion once again. But, we'll see what happens in the Royal Rumble. But I love Drew McIntyre as champion. We'll see what happens. I know Saturday night's main event also might air a little earlier due to the UFC show taking place that night as well. But, also I wanted to mention this real quick. Braun Breaker getting suspended, at least in kayfabe, for attacking Adam Pearce. Does that mean Braun Breaker versus Adam Pearce at some point in a match? I don't know. But it gives Braun Breaker some time to cool off. Maybe he shows up in the Rumble. Maybe he enters into the Elimination Chamber out of nowhere. We will see. But I like, tension building between Braun Breaker, one of the new young stars, and the authority figure. Let's see what happens. Will there be a match? Will Pearce have to dust off the old boots? We'll see. But Saturday night's main event next week. Looking forward to that. Royal Rumble the week after that. We've got TNA Genesis tonight, AEW pay-per-view in March, so we've got just week-to-week Dynamites, but I'm looking forward to each week. They've got some good stuff going on, and I'm actually more intrigued when there's not a pay-per-view on the horizon to see what AEW does week-to-week. It's actually more intriguing TV to me, because their pay-per-views are so damn good all the time that it's fine. Show me great week-to-week TV. That's the intriguing part. I know you guys can do great on pay-per-view. That's not my problem. I need compelling, entertaining, intriguing, interesting TV week-to-week. And week-to-week, you can also find the Juice Box every single week at Juicy Steen on Twitter. at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram as well. You can listen to the show. YouTube at Juicy Steen, juicysteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and like I said, YouTube. If you do listen to it on Apple Podcasts via iTunes or on Spotify, you can please give the rating a review for the show. It really does help the show grow. Check out the latest episode of No Dirt, Just Dialogue at Final Bell Media on YouTube. Jordan Carter, Andrew Baydala, yours truly. Always have a fun time with those fellas on that show. And as always, the Juice Box comes back. The Juice Box comes back to you guys next week. Saturday night's main event prediction show. Royal Rumble prediction show the following week. Things are heating up. It's Royal Rumble season, baby. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy TNA Genesis tonight. Saturday night's main event predictions next week. Right here on the Juice Box. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.